Hello and welcome to Triathlonology, a triathlon podcast by Animis racing team. I'm Oliver.
And I'm Jackie. We are a mum and son coaching team who have changed our lives through the sport of triathlon.
Our podcast aims to break down the mysteries of triathlon training and show you, the listener, how simple and flexible it can be so that it really does become part of your lifestyle and not just a hobby. Hello and welcome to another episode of Triathlonology. I'm Coach Oliver.
I'm Coach Jackie.
And together we're a mum and son triathlon coaching team from Yorkshire in England. Today's subject of our podcast in another episode of Triathlonology is the weather and triathlon, because living in, Yorkshire particularly and living in England specifically, the weather and triathlon go together all the time because there is really all sorts of weather.
Yeah, because you could have all sorts of weather in one day.
Well, in one day, yeah. So we initially thought about doing this episode when it was a bit hotter, and we were going to talk
a lot hotter. We were having a heat wave, which is
going to talk about
an anomaly in England.
Yeah, and we were going to talk about how to cope with that and with your training and what that all entails. But life goes on, and we're now at a point where we're just about to go into autumn, winter. So we're going to talk about the other extreme as well, in how that is with doing training in the winter, in the cold and the rain and the damp and what have you. So that's what this episode is going to be about. And seeing as we are in, just about to go into proper autumn, proper winter now, with probably best off start with training in autumn winter conditions.
Yes.
In the Northern Hemisphere generally.
Particularly in Yorkshire.
Yeah. Because obviously, if you're listening to this in sunnier climes like in Spain or Portugal or the south of France, I imagine your experience of winter is somewhat different to ours.
Yes. Although when I did go to Australia, people were wearing jumpers and flipping hoodies and duffel coats, and I thought it were boiling. But so it's everybody's.
Well, we've experienced that when we've been to Barcelona in New Year. We've been sat there in a t-shirt, and then they've just had people have been walking past with big coats and scarves, and it's been 18 degrees, and people are looking at us like we've got three heads.
Yeah.
But in about a week or 10 days' time from when we've recorded this podcast, the clocks in England will go back, which will mean that nights get longer and the mornings get shorter. So most people, if they've got a job during the day,
we're going to work at dark and coming home in the dark.
But that also means they'll be going training in the dark and going training at home and after work, which obviously is not a very pleasant thing, but you have to take your victim as you find them, as I often say in my line of work. Not a murdering, being a solicitor.
No.
So how would we say that you should do your training in the winter, particularly if you're in the Northern Hemisphere and in a place where it is going to be dark, cold, rainy, windy, and
snowy,
generally unpleasant weather? Well, the old maxim, dark nights, running tights.
Yep, definitely.
So if you're going to go outside and go training and running outside on the roads, make sure that you wrap it up appropriately. So don't need to be going in any shorts. Wear some running tights. It'll help keep the rest of your legs warm and retain the heat, which will help prevent from injury. I would say some temperatures have a base layer on.
Yeah, I think a base layer, yeah, definitely. You can always take things off. You can't put them on.
That's true.
Wear bright clothes. Wear, luminous or the reflective, so that motorists can see you. Because as a motorist myself, when you're driving along and then you see, what was that? It's somebody running in all black. Why?
Yeah. So, something high-vis or something with visibility on it, or the Pro-Vis jackets that we've got.
With Pro-Vis, but you do look like
an alien.
No, you don't. You're too young for this, but over age F, it was
Randall
Ockert deceased. You look like Lincoln Ockert.
A spectre.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they're great.
Which is appropriate for around Halloween. But yes, making sure you wear a base layer and a t-shirt and then a jacket with some visibility on it. We recommend the Pro-Vis stuff because we've worn that for years.
And it works.
It really does light you up like a Christmas tree, so people can't can't miss you when you're running. But most of the time, if you're running in a town or a city, you're going to be on the pavement anyway. It's only if you're in the countryside that you're probably going to be interacting with vehicles on the road.
I still think it's a good idea to be seen.
Yes, because you can't trust pedestrians to not look at you either.
No.
But so you can run outside, obviously, and that will be quite fine. It's where you get to riding your bike that becomes potentially a problem, because in the winter you're opening yourself up to a lot more, or autumn, winter, you're opening yourself up to a lot more injuries caused by other people other than you. And what I mean by that is vehicles or people stepping out in the road because they're not looking.
Yeah.
Which is less likely in the spring and summer months because it's more daylight. People are more vigilant and watching what they're doing, but not necessarily.
You'll be walking along, looking at the phone, and not seeing what's in front of them. Same as drivers will be just concentrating on the road, not thinking what's coming left or right at them. So it's
or coming from a track, or a turning, or a drive, or some traffic lights or whatever. So, what I would say, personal recommendation, and by all means, this is not like the gospel, but I would say if you're going to go out on your bike, go out during the daytime.
Do that at weekends.
Or if you work shifts and you've got the ability to go out during the day, do that. If you are not able to go out during the day, then the turbo is going to become your friend.
Yep.
And what is a turbo, in case people don't know?
Yep, it's a machine that you can attach your bike to. You can either put a skewer through your wheel and fasten it onto it that way that it clamps your back wheel into the piece of equipment.
A flywheel.
Flywheel, yeah, that's it. That's technical. Or if you're really whizzy and you like your technology and you have something like a Wahoo kicker or a Tax Neo like we've got, you take your back wheel off, you put it onto the
you put your chain onto the cassette on the turbo, and it's called a direct drive because it replicates that back wheel feel for you, but it's just moving round instead.
Yeah.
And that really is going to be the key to having a safe and successful winter, really, because you can, no matter what weather's doing outside, no matter what, whether it's dark or
if it's raining or it's snowing, or there's no excuse for not getting on your turbo.
No, you can get on your turbo and you can get a good session out. And yes, it can be boring, but it is the 100% safest, guaranteed way that we can that you'll be able to do your exercise. You'll be able to do your bike training in the winter.
Yeah, I was also listening to Lucy Gossage on a podcast, ironically, today, and she was saying about when you're actually doing an Ironman or a longer distance race, you need to be able to have been. You've got to have done your Saturdays and Sundays, your 3-hour rides on the turbo, because you've only got yourself for company.
Coping with boredom.
And you've got to cope with boredom. So it gives you the tools and the mental fortitude to be able to execute your race on race day. Because I could never do an Ironman because I can't get on with myself. So, for doing that for 6 hours on a bike, I'd be ready for shooting myself. But everybody to their own. But a turbo gives you so many benefits.
Well, you don't have to stop. I mean, the principal one is you don't have to stop for traffic or red lights or anything else that's going off in the road. So you do continuously cycling. Usually you can have your turbo inside as well. Now, it might be that you're allowed to have it in the garage, in which case that's usually warmer than the outside. Or you might have to have it in the kitchen or spare room or wherever it might be. That's also going to be warmer than being outside. So you don't have to get all togged up in your winter gear to go and do it. And it means that it's quicker and easier. You can get on, get your session done and get off again.
And it's normally a really quality session as well.
You can liven up your turbo sessions somewhat by adding bits to them. So we've been on Zwift, which is like a
gaming thing, platform.
Since we were beta testers for it. Crikey, 2011, 2012-ish, right at the beginning.
Yeah.
We've been on Zwift since that time, and there are, when we first went on it, there was like a little island you could go around, and it was quite Bobby Basic, but now it's all encompassing. There's different worlds you can go to, different courses. I rode it the other week, and I was in France 1 minute, and I went through this virtual portal, and I was riding up a climb that they'd done in the Volta a España like a week before. So that was interesting. Or not that I could see it, I just got like the ramps and stuff, but that made it a bit more. At least I could familiarise myself with that.
And also with the new direct drive turbos that connect to Zwift, you get a much more realistic riding experience, don't you?
Yeah, because that will alter the difficulty of your ride depending on the terrain on Zwift. If you select it, you want it to be controlled, which for some sessions is fine. For some sessions, in my opinion, is not fine.
No.
But if you want to have a real life outside type ride, but inside on your turbo, having your direct drive trainer control that on Zwift or another platform like that is really good. You can also do what I do and put Match of the Day on. So I'll tape that at night on the Saturday night, knowing that I've got to go and do my training on a Sunday morning, and then I can get up and watch the full episode of Match of the Day from Saturday night, not the shortened down version, one that they show at 8:30 on a Sunday morning. Or if depending on, sometimes I also decide to wait until later in the day and watch whatever's on Sky Sports, football, or whatever it might be while I'm doing that.
Well, so I'm completely different to Oliver in that I am so glad now that Neighbours is back on the telly, because I record my Neighbours and I watch Neighbours. I watch weeks worth of Neighbours because it's pure indulgence, it's pure fantasy, really, and it's just takes you away from yourself. And I'm not ashamed to say I'm a Neighbours fan.
You could also watch a film.
Yeah, watch a film.
Watch a films in times gone past, particularly when Disney Plus first came out. And my wife subscribed to it. I went straight through all the Avengers films in order, and then all the Star Wars films in order, so that I could do, which obviously occupies a lot of your time. So training indoors is really beneficial because you get a good session. There are things you can do to entertain yourself while you're doing that, but you haven't got to worry about getting togged up into your winter clothes or dealing with the perils of winter, generally speaking. For running, you can also use a treadmill if you've got access to one of those in a gym, or maybe you've got one in one of your own, because if it is absolutely silent it down, and which for people who are not from Yorkshire means it's raining cats and dogs, then, and you might look out the window and think, I don't fancy doing me running this, and then not do it. Having a treadmill means, again, you can go into the garage or the spare room or the gym or wherever it might be, and you can get your session done, although essentially running on the spot. Because the treadmill is continually moving at the pace that you set it to, you're always running to a steady pace, or otherwise you can change that as you go on, and you can change the incline as well for running and again, hills and stuff.
I know people call it the treadmill, but you can get, again, a real quality session on a treadmill. You just need to know how to use it properly. And if you have a good coach that sets you good sets, then you can actually become a much improved runner on the treadmill. I know people are going to say, oh, no, you can't. You can. Trust me, you can. And I would recommend. I know that Zwift now does running, but although I've not really done that yet. But again, I watch, when I'm doing sessions, I watch my iPad and watch a program or something that I've downloaded, and it just passes your time on. And it means that you're not getting, because I also think going outside from the warm to the cold, getting absolutely wet through, coming back into the warm, having a shower, getting all your thick clothes back on, I think it contributes to colds and infections and things like that. I might be a bit old-fashioned with that, but
that's an old wife's tale.
I know it's an old wife's tale, but I do think so.
Well,
whatever.
That's not science.
It's not science. That's just Yorkshire sense.
Okay. So that's pretty much winter training and what you can do with your winter training to try and make it safer and more enjoyable for you. So let's talk about what to do in periods of hot weather, which previously were quite unheard of in England. But in the last couple of years, we've had some really lengthy heat waves, which have been really hot because of probably global warming, amongst other things. But when we were on our training holiday this year in Portugal, they were having a heat wave, which meant it got to like 30 degrees by 10 o'clock, which for them, again, in April was unheard of.
Yeah.
But how can you cope with this if this happens to you? I mean, you might live generally in a hot place and be heat adapted. But if you are somewhere where it's a more temperate climate and then it picks up and dips off like in England, like in parts of the USA, northern France, Germany, those kind of places. What do we do if you've got a hot day and you want to do your really hot day and you want to do your training? Well, simply, I would say go out earlier.
Yeah.
Or go out later. So don't go out when it's absolutely boiling. Go out before it starts to get hot, or go out when it's started to cool down.
If you've got a long run to do, go out and put your bottles in strategic places so that you could have a drink. And if you use a loop course, then that's always better because you can always stop.
Yeah. And you want to wear light and breathable clothing because doing exercise anyway, you'll be sweating. But if it's 30 degrees and you're trying to go out there, you'll just make it worse. And the chances of getting heat stroke or hyponatremia or something even worse than that are higher. So wear something breathable and fast drying. Wear a cap to protect protect your head from the sun.
Put some suntan stuff on.
Make sure you're taking in plenty of fluids. And when we talk about fluids, we're not just talking about water, but get some salts in there as well. And again, indoor training is really useful when it's boiling hot. I know that sounds ridiculous to say, oh, well, particularly for people in England who get a month's worth of summer and that's
well, you're lucky.
Yeah, you're lucky and that's your lot. It then becomes horrible again. But for a good training environment, if it is roasting outside, then if you go inside, you can go on the turbo again, point the fan at you and whack it on full blast so you're like in an hurricane. That'll keep you nice and cool. Same on the treadmill. You can have your fan at you on the treadmill and that'll keep you cool.
And if you go to a gym, then they've usually got air conditioning.
Yeah. So you have to sort of use the tools that you've got available to you to make the temperature or the weather circumstances work for you. Because some people will absolutely really relish going out in the heat. I particularly perform better when it's hot than when it's cold. That said, I won't go out running when it's 30 degrees because I think I'm just going to die. So I would, but it depends. I mean, largely it depends on your own circumstances, doesn't it? If you work during the day and you've got an evening and a morning to be able to do training, well, you'll probably be all right in the morning before it starts to get hot.
Yeah.
But in an evening, particularly later on you get into the summer, it might be quite late before you can get back out again and it cools down sufficiently. So that's again where being able to go into the garage or the spare room with a fan on and do your training outside is advantageous. It's using your time that you've got wisely and it's not letting something that you can't control, i.e. the weather, stop you doing the training that you can control.
Yeah, and the thing is, the key to success in triathlon is consistency. And what we're trying to do
on that, I saw a study this morning on Twitter. I think it must have been done by Training Peaks, where they'd said that actually, if you are 80% consistent in your training, you will perform 7 times better than you think you're going to perform.
Well, I think we should leave it on that then, Oliver.
Yes. So control the controllables, or as Billy Connolly said, there's no such thing as bad weather. There's only the wrong clothes. Until next time, I'll see thee. Thank you for joining us today.
See you next time.
See you then. Or as we say in Yorkshire, see thee.